let's get into that mindset of having assets that generate the cash flow, and that cash flow is what determines your lifestyle.
How do you build a network, run a profitable business, and make an impact? Oh, and have a personal life at the same time? That's the question, and this podcast is the answer. I'm your host, Chas Wilson, husband, father of 5, author of the book 5+1, president and co-founder of Master Networks Inc., a national networking organization. Look, each week I bring you successful entrepreneurs who will share success strategies of how to effectively build a network, add valuable wisdom to your journey, and help you succeed. Welcome to Connect, Share, and Prosper.
Hey everybody, welcome to Connect, Share, Prosper. Today I'm so excited for our guests. Today we have someone who's been so instrumental, impactful on the entrepreneurial community. We are blessed today to have author, CEO of Pay Your Family First. She's passionate about teaching financial literacy. She's the author of 15 best-selling books. Some of them you would recognize, if not all of them. We've got the Rich Dad, Poor Dad, Cashflow Quadrant. Please welcome to Connect, Share, Prosper, Sharon Lechter. Sharon, thanks for being with us today on Connect, Share, Prosper.
Well, thank you, Chad. I'm delighted to be with you. I'm so excited to be with you this morning.
So thank you for being with us. Those of you listening today here on Monday, every Monday noon Central, we bring you successful entrepreneurs that are going to share wisdom that we're going to hear today. If you have a question for Sharon throughout the episode, make sure you leave it on our Facebook page, and we will ask that of Sharon today. So Sharon, tell us about, let's start here, and I definitely want to get to the big play movement. We'll talk about that in just a second, but tell us how you co-founded Rich Dad with Robert, and then how the books came about, and then we'll move that into the big play movement. But tell us a little bit about that.
Certainly. I'll give you the Cliff Notes version because I've been around a long time. I started my career as a CPA, and at the ripe old age of 25, when we all think we know everything, I decided if I was going to work that hard, I should work for myself. So I started as an entrepreneur at 25. Fast forward a few years, I started the talking children's book industry and grew that globally. My husband, Michael Lechter, is a well-known intellectual property attorney, and so he helps strategize the licensing and the global ability to leverage and expand. And we sold that company after four years and came down to Arizona. And our oldest son went off to college and ended up coming home at Christmas in a little credit card debt. So he had a really good time his first semester in college. But
Right.
That was December of '92, and that's when I dedicated the rest of my career to financial education and financial literacy. Because I grew up in a very entrepreneurial home. It was second nature to me to buy, build, or create assets that generated revenue. And I started realizing that that was just not common practice. People exchanged time for money and worked harder, longer, got a second job, didn't realize the value of creating, buying, and building assets. And so fast forward a few years, I get a call from my husband. He says, Sharon, I met this guy who has what you've been looking for, which was hysterical for ladies. What would you do if your husband called you and
Right,
said,
right.
I have met a man that has what you've been looking for? I still remember where I was in the car. And so I met Robert at a beta test. He had the idea for the game Cashflow drawn out on butcher block paper. The playing pieces were different caliber bullets. So great first impression, but the methodology of what he was teaching was exactly what I wanted people to learn. And that was buy, build, and create assets, right? Whether it be businesses or real estate or stocks, bonds, mutual funds, to really focus on investing your money as opposed to spending your money. And at the time, he lived in a small 2-bedroom condo, but he had 2 small apartment houses that generated $100,000 of passive income a year. His expenses were like $36,000. So he was financially free. And that concept that financial freedom doesn't have to mean millions of dollars was what I wanted people to understand. And so I volunteered at the time to help him commercialize the game Cashflow. And in that process, he asked me to be his partner. And he wanted to charge $200 for the board game. And I said, well, maybe we should write a brochure that kind of explains the philosophy, because $200 is a little pricey. So maybe we need to give them a marketing tool. Yeah. And so the brochure we wrote together was called Rich Dad, Poor Dad. We never thought it was going to have a life of its own, certainly be on the New York Times bestseller list for 7 years and go around the globe in 100 countries, 51 languages. But that began, all of a sudden people wanted more. So we said, oh, okay, well, I guess we need to have more than one book. So we said, oh, we'll write 3. So Rich Dad, Poor Dad, Cashflow Quadrant, Guide to Investing. We thought, okay, the trilogy, it's done. But oh no. So over our 10-year partnership or relationship, we wrote 15 books together, and I launched a secondary brand called Rich Dad Advisors, where we brought in subject matter experts to do books. And so we became a publishing powerhouse on financial literacy and education from 97 to 2007 when I left.
Well, so there's so much to unpack from that story. There's a couple things that I want our listeners to understand. Number one, we talk all the time about you're one relationship away from changing your future, and it so much sounds like you were that relationship for Robert at that time that really helped him, and he helped you in many ways. That's why it was a great partnership at the time for both of you. But just so I understand, because we just had a cash flow mastery mastermind here, and you were talking about foundationally free, where I think there's this myth that foundationally free is like this 40-year destination down the road. And if I understood what you were saying is, so he had assets that were paying him cash that covered his expenses, and so in essence he was financially free at that moment, correct?
Well, that's my definition of financial freedom. You are financially free when the income from your assets exceeds your monthly expenses, because you don't have to get a bed. Your assets are working for you. And that doesn't need to be millions of dollars. And, in his case, it was not a lot of money, but, he kept his living expenses low. And that's the idea of investing in assets first and then letting your assets pay for your luxuries. We talk about, I think it's in Rich Dad Poor Dad, one of the books, we talk about, wanting a Porsche. So let's go buy an apartment complex, and the apartment complex generates the cash flow to pay for the car payment of the Porsche. And then when the Porsche, all of a sudden the Porsche is paid for, you still have the cash flow from the apartments and the Porsche.
That's right.
So let's get into that mindset of having assets that generate the cash flow, and that cash flow is what determines your lifestyle.
Well, so on behalf of all the entrepreneurs listening to this, I don't know if you get this much, but I just want to say thank you for writing those books, because particularly Cashflow Quadrant for me, like I read Rich Dad Poor Dad, and it changed my mindset. But it was, to me, and again, I'm only speaking for myself on this, Cashflow Quadrant became the tactics for me to go, oh my gosh, and then I went through like stages of grief. Like I was angry at first, no one had ever taught me this. I was like, okay, now I've been opened, my mind's been open to this, now how do I apply it? So thank you for putting that in a book that was so easy to understand, and that many of us changed our financial future because of that.
You're very welcome. And a Cashflow Quadrant, by the way, is my favorite of the books as well, because I think it provides you a roadmap to change your thinking. Mm-hmm. And it gives you the relative thought processes around money. And you can start identifying, if you hang around with a lot of people that are employees and have no other source of income, you're going to think like them. So if you want to get to the point where you're on the right side of the quadrant, where you are building assets that work for you, you want to hang around with those people. And if you're on the left side of the quadrant, you're exchanging time for money. And so the amount of money you can make is finite.
Yes.
But if you start moving to the right side, your income potential is infinite. And I make money out of all 4 quadrants. I'm an employee of my own corporation. When I go out speaking, I get paid for speaking, but those are my time being exchanged for money. The vast majority of my wealth and my income comes from businesses that I own that other people run, and from investments that I've made. And so the concept of and that's not the side that we're taught in school.
Yes.
School and college teaches you how to be an employee or a self-employed or a speaker or a superstar, I call it. And it's you exchanging time for money.
It's so good. So thank you for that. It's been such an instrumental book. It's one of the top 3 books I recommend to every entrepreneur when they start. You're getting, by the way, Facebook Live is loving on you right now. Gina, hello. Denise, Ashley, Lene, thank you for thumbs up. Please share this podcast right now, so others who need to hear this message from Sharon, the great Sharon Lechter, will be able to have an impact and have access to this right away. And so again, if you have questions for Sharon, myself, please leave those here in the comments. So you write these books, and it's interesting and fascinating. You shared this with me before, and I found it fascinating that it started with the game. I thought it started with the books, but it really started with the game.
The name of our company was Cashflow Technologies. We thought our brand was Cashflow, and that we were going to be a game company. And you start listening to your customers, and all of a sudden we realize, okay, Cashflow is a brand, but Rich Dad is one that's kind of exploding. We better pay attention. And people wanted more books, so we wrote more books. And it's like, you just got to listen to your customers. And it was, quite a ride. It was the right message at the right time. We were truly a viral marketing success before the internet, before Amazon.
Yes.
Because people like yourself who read Rich Dad Poor Dad, found value, read Cashflow Quadrant, you shared it with other people.
That's it.
And there's no greater marketing tool than referral marketing through people finding value and sharing it with other people.
So couldn't have said it better myself, Sharon. That's what we teach is network. The power of your net worth is really in direct proportion to the size of your network. And have you found that to be true in your life, and how's that shown up for you?
Well, absolutely. In my after I left Rich Dad, adding to those 15 books I shared with you, I've written another 4 or 5 now with the Napoleon Hill Foundation. And one of them I released over 10 years ago called 3 Feet from Gold. And we share a success formula. And I'm not sure if I shared this with you the last time we talked, Chas, but it's your passion and your talent, which is all about you. That's the left side of the quadrant. Times A association, which is exactly what you do. Business is a team sport.
Yes.
And you need to have that power of association. And when I work with companies that have plateaued in their sales, the first thing I ask them is, when did you go to a new market? Where did you go to a new event? How are you expanding your network? Because that power of association is usually how we end up getting stalled. And then the rest of the formula is passion plus talent times association, A times A action. And then at the end of the day, plus F, faith in yourself, faith in what you're doing, faith that is needed and necessary. And most people, that F is fear. They're afraid to step outside their comfort zone. They're afraid, they're comfortable in their business, right? And they're not challenging themselves. As Les Brown would say, you're not hungry, right?
Yes.
And the way to continue growing is to remember, have faith that what you're doing helps other people. And so, take it outside yourself. Successful businesses either solve a problem or serve a need. And if you think every morning when you get out of bed, this is the problem I'm solving, this is the need I'm serving, it takes it outside of you, and it forces you to realize that you're out there to impact others.
So did it take a leap of faith? You talked about that in your equation. Did it take a leap of faith for you when you stepped away from the Rich Dad organization to do your own and the things that you've got going now? And how did that play into what you're doing now?
Well, absolutely, Chas. I shared the phrase, sometimes you have to close one door for other doors of opportunity to open. In 2007, we've had an incredible success at the height of our success over 10 years. But Robert wanted to go into a franchising model that was not a good model for the consumer, great for us, but not, and I just couldn't believe in it. I couldn't support it. So I made the decision to leave Rich Dad. And it was a very difficult decision from a standpoint of, I thought that was my legacy. Rich Dad, 15 books. It's like giving birth 15 times.
Right.
For the ladies who are watching. But I couldn't stay there any longer because of my own integrity and standing in your own power. And I did not know what was in front of me. But, by making that decision a few months later, I got the call from President Bush asking me to be on the very first President's Advisory Council for Financial Literacy. Incredible honor. I wouldn't have gotten that had I still been at Rich Dad. A few months later, we know what was happening to the economy in 08, 09. I got the call from Napoleon Hill saying, we need you to help us reinvigorate the teachings of Napoleon Hill and Think and Grow Rich in this time of financial stress around the globe. I wouldn't have gotten that call had I still been at Rich Dad. So I challenge everybody listening and watching, is there a door in your life you need to close so other doors of opportunity will open?
Wow, that's such a great thing. It's like often those doors close. We feel like they've closed to us, but what you're saying is you can make a decision to close a door so another would open. Like you made that decision. It didn't happen to you. You made the decision and took control of that and took that leap of faith to start this and look at those opportunities. I mean, to work with the President of the United States, to the Napoleon Hill organization. What an awesome honor, I'm sure. And so how has that led into, and tell us about the Big Play movement and what that is and what that means.
Well, thank you, Chaz. Yeah. So, my entire career with the talking books, we took a new technology. Kids had never had anything technology. It's the sound books that had the sound strips down the side. So we said, well, how can we get parents to trust us? That power of association. So we reached out to Walt Disney World, Sesame Street, Warner Brothers, even Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles the first time around.
Yeah.
And so that allowed us to explode that company on a global basis. When we started the Rich Dad company, I said, okay, well, I want now, instead of paying millions of dollars to these big companies, I want them paying us. So I want us to establish the brand that other people want to align with. And so that's what we did with Rich Dad. And we had Time Life come to us and want to do the infomercials for us. Warner Books came to us wanting to publish the books. We had big players coming to us. So that power of association, of knowing who is it out there that can take your message, your products, your business, and exponentially explode it in a positive way, right? And so that's what I do. That's one of my superpowers, helping people find those new revenue streams, find those new partners. And so, about 6.5 years ago, everything went upside down for me when I lost my youngest son.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
And everybody listening and watching probably had something that stopped them in their tracks. And all of a sudden, I was still plenty busy in neutral, right? I was just numb, just going through the motions. I wasn't looking for those big players, those big partners anymore. I was just like, okay, this is what I do. This is what I do. And it's that comfortable thing. I wasn't hungry. I was just numb. And I bet a few people watching or listening go, oh yeah, I remember that time in my life. And I even started thinking about retiring. And I got a lot of pushback from family, friends, and some of my clients. And so I made the decision about 1.5 years ago to, instead of retire, to refire. And I launched the Play Big movement because I'm playing big again. And I wanted to do that along with everybody else. We have a free private Facebook group called Play Big Movement with Sharon Lechter, where I interview people like you to share what they're doing to play big. I have the overall podcast called the Play Big Movement with Sharon Lechter as well. And so my goal is to encourage other people to take a bigger stand, find that next power of association. That's why I so enjoyed talking to you, because that's what you're creating. You're creating those atmospheres for people to find someone they can align with. And you may be in different industries, but can support each other. You might actually find that next mentor, because sometimes a mentor who got you where you are today cannot get you to where you're going. I just came back last night from a retreat at my ranch here in Arizona, cherrycreeklodge.com, where we had 10 business owners, and we just went deep into their businesses to determine what, and one of the topics that we talk about with them is, who's that next association that can take you to a 5x, 10x, get you to the point where you have that power of association, but also that power of recognition, distribution, validity, all of those things to help you make a greater impact. And the Play Big movement really means being number one in your field. You're an expert in your field, authority in your field, living your legacy. All right. I talked about, I thought, Rich, your legacy is created every single day with the hearts of people that you touch, and then creating maximum impact. And if you're going to work, why not create maximum impact? And if there's that one new association that can impact, take your impact from 2 times, 3 times, 10 times, go for it.
So I think those listening who are part of Master Networks, you can see why I connect so well with Sharon, because she used so many of the key words. I mean, our mission statement has the phrase legacy beyond the business. Impact. We're writing a book called Impact right now, Becoming a Person of Positive Influence. So many of the things you said, but I loved this phrase. I thought about retiring, but instead of retire, I'm going to refire. And I think that can come in many different ways. It could be you're in a rut in your business going through the motions, and it's time to refire that business and do that. So I loved that phrase. How can people, by the way, find you and connect with you? You said that you had the free Facebook group. How do they become part of that?
Well, I'm Sharon Lechter, and it's SharonLechter. And I'm across all social media. SharonLechter.com is my website. And then author Sharon Lechter is my professional Facebook page, Instagram, LinkedIn. So I invite all of you to connect with me on all those channels. And then at SharonLechter.com, we have literally the success equation that I just shared with you. You can download it there, or you can go to bit.ly.com/success equation. And it's a process. It's a worksheet. It's not a sales tool. It's a process that walks you through your own personal success equation. I challenge you with questions on how you can strengthen and deepen your success.
That's great. So, I ask every entrepreneur on this show, I ask them a couple of questions that I ask everyone. So it's been very interesting. And so 2 questions. The first one is, what are you working on? What's in front of you that's a big project you're working towards that maybe our listeners can help with or be a part of or whatnot?
Well, thank you very much, Chas. And of course, the biggest project is this Play Big movement, inviting people in. There's been no advertising for it. It's grown organically. We have, I think 1,300 people that have come together and say, I'm here. I want to do this with you. And so I invite everybody to join the Play Big movement. But once I made that decision, it's amazing the things that have opened for us.
Yeah.
I've been on the Get Motivated stages. I want people to put the stake in the ground and open yourself to the possibility of playing big, because it's amazing what you attract when you do that.
Yeah.
In 2 weeks, I'm going to Copenhagen. I've been invited to be a keynote speaker for the President's Summit. There's 2,000 CEOs and C-suite employees
Wow.
that are there. And so I'm excited again, expanding the association, right? It's going to allow me to impact all of those individuals, but more importantly, hopefully impact all of their employees, that power of leverage. One of them in that room may hear me speak and say, if she can help my employees, I want to bring her in and have her talk to them. And so again, putting yourself in the place of greatest potential. That's what playing big is all about.
So I'm curious. The Play Big movement, I mean, you're successful. You've accomplished many, many amazing things. Why, one could say, why put all this effort into helping others play big? What's in it for you? What's the drive? Why make the impact in that arena? Why?
Well, I thank you for that question. Growing up, every night, my dad would tuck me in and say, Sharon, have you added value to someone's life today? All right. And he's been gone for 14 years, but I still ask myself that every night. And that, why am I here? All right. And part of it is, as I said, when I thought about retiring and I got the pushback, I actually think I got a little pushback from my son saying, get over it, Mom, there's more for you to do. And so my response to you is, there is more for all of us to do. Yes. And my goal, I am fed hearing from people like you, Chas, when you said Rich Dad Poor Dad made an impact on you. Cashflow Quadrant made an impact for you. That is my food for today. That's going to give me the energy to keep going and keep doing what I'm doing. And that's the power of making a difference in people's lives and knowing that they've taken the information. Because a lot of people say, you've changed my life. I go, no, I haven't changed your life. I'm glad that I wrote something that inspired you. But take the ownership of the fact that you changed your life. You read it, it inspired you, and you took action to create a better life for yourself, your family, your business.
Well, thank you for sharing that, and thank you for sharing your talents and your superpower, as you said, with all of us, because it has made an impact. Last question I'm going to ask you. I think, and I've shared this, when I was on Tim Story's podcast, he asked me this question, and it caught me off guard, so I'll drag it out a little bit so it gives you fair warning. Maybe he's asked you this before, but Tim asked me, in business, when was I the most proud? Because often in business we don't get an opportunity to kind of brag a little bit and say, this is when I accomplished something I was the most proud. Is there a moment in business particularly where you were like, gosh darn it, I did that, and I'm pretty proud of that? Is there something that that comes to mind for you?
Well, I get asked similar questions, and I always say, the next event will be my most favorite event.
I like that.
I've been blessed with success. I've been blessed, and it was hard work. So
Yes.
it was not lucky. It was not, it was not circumstance. It was building the right foundation around a business. This is what I teach my clients, and I teach people. I have an online course called Essential Components of a Successful Business, because you can have the greatest product or service, but if you don't build the foundation around your business, it can't scale. And so it's very important to learn what you need to do to create that successful business. And so when I know someone has taken action as a result of something I've written, that's the greatest gift I can give. Yes, I've had the honor of receiving lots of awards. I was the only woman inducted into the Personal Development Hall of Fame.
Wow.
And those kinds of things are very, very exciting to me. And of course, being on the President's Advisory Council. But probably, if I came down to brass tacks, the day that I got the New York Times and the first time we made it on the list for Rich Dad Poor Dad was on our own.
Yes.
Okay, we didn't have a major publisher before it. It was us doing the work, hitting the pavement, doing the radio shows. And it was not their typical, it was 3 years after we initially published it. So this was a groundswell of popularity. And having that, because the same week we hit New York Times, USA Today,
Wow.
at that time Business Week had a list, the magazine. So it was like the pinnacle of all of that energy, time, and initiative. But it wasn't the fact that we were just on the list. It was the fact that we made the list and therefore gave us a stronger platform to influence more people. Mm. And so when you strive or you get recognized, think of it as, how can this recognition help me help more individuals?
Oh, so powerful. Guys, we've been so blessed today to hear such wisdom and experience, and just Sharon, so blessed to have you on our show today. Thank you for so much. I could spend half a day listening to your wisdom and stories and experience and mentoring. So thank you so much for being a guest today on Connect, Share, Prosper. Guys, we've been blessed. Reach out to Sharon on Facebook, follow her, connect with her, share from her wisdom that she's just shared with us today. And remember, every Monday, noon Central, if you want to be notified every time these episodes come out, follow us on YouTube. You'll get notified every time the replay of the episodes come out. Every Monday Central on the Master Network's homepage. Share these podcasts so that as I bring these entrepreneurs on, they can share their wisdom with you and each of your friends. So again, Sharon, thanks for being on this episode of Connect, Share, Prosper. Be well and take care.
Thank you so much. It's been fantastic. And thank you for all you do to support the people in your groups.
Thank you.